Okay, so usually you have so this is the closed circuit, you know? So okay. I got to make this fit inside the box. Okay, you know what? I'll just make the box bigger. So you guys can see better, right? Okay, so everyone begins with this premise. Right? So 99% of people will go here, you know? Um so remember Pinocchio if you want to think about the Jewish deception trick or whatever, right? So okay. So communism does not have a bad rap in America, okay? Forget the fucking Anglo box. Fuck, I fucking use the square. You're autistic. I use a square and you have to it's irrelevant. Just ignore that, okay? I'm using a fucking square for convenience sake. Fuck's sake. Don't overthink shit. If I say Anglo box, I'll say it. Anyway, look, guys, this is the reason communism struggles in America. It's not, nobody's beginning with the premise that it's bad, okay? Everyone begins with the premise that it's good. The problem is how they reconcile that premise with its inevitable contradictions, okay? Dialectics refers to a real nature of being, okay? So this is a dialectical logic. This is the circuit. This is the closed circuit, the dialectical logic of anti-communism. Okay? And it's not that it's bad. It's what's the response, you know? So how do people become MLs or how do people become communists? Well, there's forks. So I'll give you a few forks, okay? So fork 1, let's just call this fork 1, right? It's good. Let's just say 85%. I think most people start here. I'd say 95, right? This is how they respond. So this is a fork, but this is also a response. So you see, we can say like this is circuit 1. This is like what 99% of people, right? They go down this path. This is circuit 1, right? All right, this is circuit 2. Okay, this is another dialectical logic. So you see, this is a pipeline. See, when you can break with this fork, you can get some pretty interesting pipelines going, but this is a closed pipeline for sure. This is closed. If you can somehow avoid this short circuit right here, you can set yourself on a path that's pretty interesting. That's gonna, because this is not a closed pipeline. Well, this can end up being a type of brain rot closed pipeline, but usually what happens is that usually let's say like 95% of the time this goes back here, okay? So this becomes a close. So this is the short circuit. The short circuit is always going to end here. This is short. So even if you take this roundabout detour right here, there's a good chance you'll end up just back here, right, in the short circuit, okay? But this is not a short circuit. So if you can start forking, you can actually escape the short circuit of the logos. So look, I don't have time to develop this in full. I'd love to. But what I'm trying to okay, so this is the logic, okay? This is a logic. It's not an ideal, it's not a premise, it's a logic. This is the logic, okay? Communism's good, but it's but it's actually bad. So this is a short circuit logic. This is a fork you can take. It's good, but it's never been tried. Usually that's going to lead to another one, right? Okay, well, there's other ways. Actually, this can maybe lead to some more interesting things. So, for example, if you avoid the short circuit and keep going down the rabbit hole further through the study of Marxism, for example, maybe you'll say something like this. I mean, Michael Parenti, I think, some people, the Parenti pill, I think, so, for example, this is the Parenti pill. Parenti pill, usually Parenti allows people to just go straight here, but a lot of time leftists also come to this way, right? Yeah, these are Trotskyites and leftcoms and anarchists and all sorts of people are usually in this second box, and they usually short circuit. But there's a you can kind of go here as well, you know. Well, it wasn't given the proper chance because of U.S. imperialism. Okay, I'll say 5%. Let's just say 5 to 15% of leftists will say this, okay? I should qualify the ones that call themselves communist. So this is one of the things, okay? And then well, it wasn't given the proper chance, right? Because of US imperialism. And then, you go further. Let's just say I don't know, I don't know exactly where I would put the next stage. But maybe I'll end with the final stage. There's probably a lot more stages of the dialectic, right? Remember, dialectic is a tit for tat, But basically, eventually you realize that eventually you get to here, which is just Marxism, okay? And you get to the realization that Okay, so basically you conclude with this, and you'll say the obstacle of communism and its true attainment is actually an imminent fact of all societies. That this is what the division of labor actually is, described by Marx as historical materialism. And all communism is just the process of historical development itself, whereby this division of labor develops, eventually developing toward, a point where society somehow takes responsibility for its contradictory existence. So this is how you get to Marxism-Leninism. Marx-Lenin, it's literally Marx-Lenin. It's a contradiction, okay? It's a logic of contradiction that you eventually accept by going through this basic pipeline with these basic circuits. This is a short circuit, dialectical circuit that most people end with. But if you keep, this is not a comprehensive, by the way, visual. This is a very simple, this took me like 5 seconds, right? Eventually, what we call Marxism-Leninism, let's say, Marxism-Leninism becomes not one of these boxes, but kind of like the logic of this circuit coming full circle. And you accept and submit yourself to that logic, materialist dialectics, dialectical materialism, where Marxism does remain committed to that kind of original premise, though, of communism good, universal justice, the true fulfillment of morality, and the goal of the riddle of history solved. But only insofar as there's a recognition of the contradictory nature of that process, that the thing itself, which is good, communism, is traversed by this irreducible, internal, absolute contradiction. And that this is the object of being. This is what being is. It is not an ideal. Okay, Marx says communism is not for us an ideal. It's the real movement. Well, this is why. Because communism is a logic. It's a dialectical logic, if you will. Communist consciousness is a dialectical logic. Anti-communist consciousness is also a dialectical logic. But communist consciousness is a dialectical logic which is aware of its own dialectical nature as a logic. It's a logic which endangers a general comprehension of the dialectic itself, And going through this process as a baby leftist who's forking away from the NPC, 99% of people pipeline, and you're forking away into these other pipelines, eventually, when you realize all the contradictions and whatever involved in the history of communism, and you start reading and you try to understand Marxism and Marxist capital, and like you actually set yourself to the task of mastering that, you become aware of the dialectic itself. And by becoming aware of the dialectic, you actually understand what communism is in the first place and what it's referring to. It's not referring to a utopia. It's not referring to a perfect society. It's not referring to all problems disappearing. But the original premise, which is an original commitment to the good, right, that remains. It's just, see, it's so interesting and fascinating because the development of communist consciousness, and so it's like a kind of Platonic or Neoplatonic kind of process of development whereby you comprehend how you arrive at knowledge of the good. What it takes to arrive at the true knowledge of the good is not from an original naive premise of the good, but the good kind of falling into the recesses of its real premises and its real existence. And James Lindsay, he calls Marxism Gnosticism. The Gnostic kind of Gnosticism is just a kind of like blueprint for all kinds of consciousness in the West. If you talk to the Chinese about this, dialectics is ingrained into their consciousness. The Indians, dialectics is ingrained in their consciousness. All these other civilizations take dialectics for granted. So Western consciousness oftentimes needs to consult with Gnosticism to understand the dialectic of knowledge, because Gnosticism deals with, the contradiction between appearances. And this is because Chinese civilization is 5,000 years old, okay? What we call Western civilization, it's a process of the development of Manichaeanism and Zoroastrianism and Judaism and Christianity and all these kind of hodgepodge, more primitive forms of the dialectical outlook, which are not refined to the point of constituting a definite civilization yet. Whereas the Chinese have a 5,000-year-old civilization. They have an extremely refined dialectical outlook that has been cultivated for thousands of years. Okay? Is revelation not dialectics? Yeah, of course. I mean, dialectics is everything, okay? Everything is dialectical, including dialectics itself, okay?